Welcome and welcome back. It's been a little crazy dynamic over in this neck of the woods. Yeah, not exactly in a good way, so we're a little bit late to the video, but that's okay. We gotta get it done. We gotta talk about UFC 320, Ankalaev versus Pereira 2, and don't forget about Dvalishvili versus Sandhagen 1. It's gonna be such a fun night all in the T-Mobile Arena, keeping it classic. So let's go over all of these incredible matchups. There are so many good fights. Well, we're going to go over most all of them. Couldn't get to two because we got to make sure we give it our full attention. Didn't have time to detail the first two fights that we're going to see, but we will 100% be detailing them in the review. So let's start off with one of our early prelims and make our way to the main event, which is just going to be so much drama. There's just so much drama. Let's put the drama to bed. That's what's going to happen this weekend. And just to make up for being a little late on posting the video, we got Snorlax a little swaggied out. Right? Does that make up for it? We have a rematch on our hands for the light heavyweight division, and you know how it is when people try to get immediate rematches. There's a lot of, I guess you could say, bad luck in this endeavor. So there's a lot of, I guess you could say, nail-biting type vibes around that. And then our co-main event, equally as important, is all about that bantamweight respect. Merab and Sandhagen, both two incredible dudes, not a lot of animosity there, a little bit of animosity in the main event. So it's respect all the way around. And then we have more light heavyweight moving parts. I mean, this is, I guess you could say, a light heavyweight showcase, and we're riding a little bit of a light heavyweight wave coming off of last weekend. Am I right? Am I right, Carlos Oberg? Here we go. We did lose a really important fight, and we want to wish Ozzy well because it was a medical issue. Hope that he's doing okay. So shout out to Ozzy Diaz. Let's send him all the best wishes that we can. And last, we have some featherweight pick-me moments. Everyone wants that next chance at the featherweight belt, and we're trying to make a case for that with Josh Emmett and Youssef Zalal in particular, but we got a couple other featherweight baddies in there too. But first, I have a really important question that I have to ask all of you. Out of our, I guess you could say, our main six, who is what character from the Breakfast Club? I think I have an answer. So let me know what you think, because I feel like I've put together something pretty accurate here, right? Okay, so obviously John Bender is Alex, like he's rebel girl, he's got just kind of that rebel girl energy. I mean, he's not as clapbacky as John is, but I think that makes the most sense. The Merab, that was probably the easiest one to pick. I think Brian being Merab makes the most sense, does everybody's homework, is going to be, just the nerdy kind of oddball. I guess there was a little bit of competition because he could have been Allie, right? But I think Yuri is a little weirder as a human being, and Allie is the weird one. Molly Ringwald playing Claire, of course, that's Khalil. Because Khalil just has that, I don't know, he's classy, but he's got layers to him, right? And then, of course, Magomed, right? That's Andrew because he's quiet, reserved, jockey. Yeah. And I guess that leaves Corey as the principal, Richard, which I think makes sense because Corey's got that kind of, he could lead the dance, and he's a little different from everybody else, if you ask me. He's a little bit different from everybody else, but let me know if you would switch these around. I'm very curious to know. So we're going to go over two of our early prelims today. We got to talk about Patchy Mix going against Jacob Wiklacz. Oh no. Wiklacz. We're going to get there. And you know what? This is a little unfortunate, right? Patchy Mix getting relegated to early prelims, going against somebody making their debut. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you don't have a show-stopping performance in your own debut. We love Patch. Patch is such a baddie. You know how he is. Bellator star. I mean, he's only lost twice in his professional career. Patchy Mix is just so awesome and so much fun. But coming off of a loss to Mario Bautista, which, like I said, apparently that relegates you to the early prelims. I don't really get that. Maybe it has to do with something with the Mario Bautista hates. I think Mario Bautista is awesome. He's actually one of my favorite fighters, and he is so talented, and he's on his way to challenging for the belt if, things, right, go really well in his next matchup. So, anyway, here we are. Patchy Mix still never been finished. He's got the wrestling foundation, i.e. Tatiana Suarez and their love story. It makes sense, right? Something to bond over. That's just cute. That's one of the best UFC couples that there is. Patchy, with that wrestling foundation, definitely looking for the submission. 13 wins that way. That's really impressive. And he's looking for your neck. He really likes to get neck involved, for sure. And one of the best subbers in the game. I mean, right? He totally is. And he's not afraid of anybody. And he can definitely get mean in there when he needs to, despite being a really nice guy outside of the cage. And again, it's not as recent now, but still congrats on the engagement with Tatiana, a grappling love story. And then we got to have our eyes on Jacob, who's making his debut. This is going to be some fun stuff. Massa, he was in KSW and had 3 title defenses. So that's super impressive, especially at such a scrappy division, right? There's a lot of people competing at bantamweight for sure. And this is his UFC debut, rolling in on a 6-fight win streak. He's never gotten the knockout, which is interesting. So he's been very, very dominant in his submission wins and in his decision wins. But, he's not a knockout artist, at least not yet. But I wouldn't think with Patchy, having never been knocked out. Yeah. So 63% of his wins are sub, and she said yes. Yay. So he's recently engaged as well. Hi, hello, that's really cute. We got some grapplers on our hands. Some grapplers, and Jacob, interestingly, never getting the knockout, Michael Chiesa style, right? That's some Michael Chiesa energy. I'm loving this. This should be really, really interesting. I'm just very curious to see how Patchy's going to come out with this. I'm guessing some added urgency. For sure, gotta get mean, Patchy. Gotta get mean, and huge, massive stage for Jacob. Then we've got to talk about a women's bantamweight matchup, fighting for a position in the top 5. We're already in the top 10. We've got baddies on our hands. Macy Chiasson versus Yana Santos. This is gonna be, I suspect, a very, very fun fight. Macy Chiasson, she's awesome. She does her homework. That's what we love about her. Definitely a film study. She's new to being a mama, so congrats on the baby. That's so much fun, right? Being a parent. So I've heard changes your perspective on life. I can imagine. She is from Tough. And like I'm always saying, they recruit interesting personalities for Tough. So you can bank on Macy being an interesting person with a lot of depth. And she made her UFC debut in 2018. It's been up, down, all around. But it's the women's bantamweight division. And I'd say that there's a lot of talent in there for sure. Coming off of a decision loss to Ketlin Vieira, just couldn't really get in there and get the game plan going. But she is a performance of the night type. So don't sleep on Macy's ability to make it a really interesting, very violent, gritty matchup. She has that in her. She's got this very flirtatious and sassy energy, and I think she brings that into the octagon. A little bit inactive during 2023. She's a Southern Belle. She got her bachelor's degree in biology, which is really awesome. Maybe something to fall back on, right? Later in life. And big on circling, so she's a very technical fighter, likes to work in that lateral movement for sure. And she is going against Yana Santos, foxy, gymnast baddie, lifelong martial artist, coming from a taekwondo background, and she came to the UFC basically the same time that Macy did, and they have a very similar record. Right now she's coming off of a really awesome win against Miesha Tate, just totally dominated the space in there and was able to enact her game plan pretty well, avoiding any of the wrestling from the incoming Miesha. She loves her wrestling, and Yana's not really in the world of grappling or submissions. She'll hold you in the clinch though. She'll grab you right in the clinch. Really a decision grinder, knockout type. She stopped a 3-fight losing stint with her not most recent win, but the win before that. And she seems to kind of win in pairs, so that's interesting. That's random though, and that's not real. And she's faced a lot of really great opposition. She actually made her debut against Cyborg for the featherweight title. RIP, the featherweight division. Yeah, Yana's been there, done that, and she's just such a professional, always on weight, always ready to go, total gamer. We love both these ladies. Both these ladies, so much fun. They're definitely both kind of in their striking element, so I expect it to be a pretty striky McGee type fight, and I think this one's going to get gritty and nasty. Like, they both kind of have that in them, and I'm hoping that Macy is coming in with a little bit of that hunger to rebound from that loss for sure, and Yana looking to keep that streak going and, graduate up in the rankings. And now we're prelims. Who's up first? So this is so totally awesome. We actually have 2 guys who have appeared on GQ magazine that are fighting on the same night. What? Okay, that's awesome. And so Yu Zhang and Daniel Santos up first. And Yu Zhang, he was on GQ. Look at him. Oh, look at how cute. That's awesome. So the thing about Yu Zhuzhong is he is Zombie Jr. Well, that's proclaim. I like that. Okay, we got to keep the legacy going. Legacy forever. I actually got Zombie on my wall over there. He is on a 12-fight win streak, so completely undefeated in general in the professional career, enrolled in right in from the amateur success, wins in all of the ways, so definitely has that martial arts mindset. You're going to see a lot of that in there, I imagine. 40% of his wins are from submission and decision, so leaning a little bit more on that side. He is such an interesting, dynamic fighter. Shout out dynamic. He keeps his hands really low. Okay, bit of a showman. I'm a little scared. That's the kind of dynamic energy that frightens me a little bit. I mean, as pictured below, here's 2 instances where he's got his hands just, completely by the waist. The confidence. I'm liking it though. He says he's his own hero. Love that. We're rocking with that undefeated gift and curse, but at the same time, there's a lot of aura in that. He brings a lot of aura and confidence, and I'm loving that mixing in of the takedowns and just this crazy style that he's got. And speaking of crazy style, he's got an awesome matchup in Daniel Wiklacz Santos. Yo, Daniel, this is one switchy, crafty, he's such a fun fighter, and it was crazy. So he's coming off of a decision win against Zhang Yang Li, and that fight was crazy for many reasons. One, it was a scrap. That was a scrap fest. Check that fight out if you have the option. But also because we hadn't seen him since 2023, and he was a short notice fill-in. Let's go, Daniel. So I'm so happy that he's back, and in a consistent way, it seems like. We're getting him again here a couple months later, so that's awesome. Seems like we're actually getting back in the swing of things, so that was such a really fun fight. Daniel is such a ball of energy, and just his ability to take the fight anywhere. Like, he, as we wrote, never finished and doesn't let himself get bullied. So he's just got this relentless attitude, and he wants the fight to be his fight. I'd say he's more of an offensive kind of guy. 40% of his wins coming from submission decision, very similar to his opponent. So not necessarily leaning on his power, but leaning on his tenacity and how ferocious he is. And same thing as his opponent, that MMA mindset. So he's not exactly being on the ground isn't, I would say, his favorite, even though he gets a lot of submissions. Seems like he's trying to, when he is on there, mainly focus on getting ground and pound. The submissions come, right, if you start to give up and he notices that, then he'll, cut your cord there. He's always spinning. We're talking Paul Felder, spinning elbow. I know Paul loves Daniel Santos. I know he does. And he's got a tattoo of his adorable dog, so that's super cute. But yeah, it's been cancellations 101 for Daniel. So I'm really hoping that that's the end of all that adversity, and he's going to get back to performing consistently, because he is such a fun fighter. People cannot afford to forget about him. This is going to be one incredible showcase to start off the prelims. This is going to get us hooked. I have a feeling this is going to have a lot of crazy energy. Both these guys, they are ready for war, and I love their MMA mindset. This is going to be like, I am sometimes describing, what it looks like when 2 cats get into a battle and they kind of are just kind of rolling around the grass, because cats are mad athletic, so it's going to be a cat scrap. And honestly, such a fan of both of these guys, and happy to see them, climbing their way up in the featherweight world. And then we have an awesome bantamweight scrap between Farid Basharat and Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez representing so many flags. Shout out to our worldly Mr. Gutierrez, El Guapo. Switchy, he so is. So he's been in UFC for a little bit, been pretty active since 2018, 10-3-1, and is currently coming off of a grindy split decision win with John Castaneda. That was a really, really good fight. Like that, they both showed some serious heart and some, I'd say, some pretty intense ability to make adjustments throughout the fight for sure. That was a scrap. The corners also in that fight were insane. Like, you could hear, John's corner saying, "He's dead! He's dead!" Like, just trying to, like, he's gone! He's already given up! It was really, because, as a split decision fight, by the time it had gotten to that third round, we were frantic, right? We were so frantic. So anyway, Chris is so much fun, and that split decision win, kind of an evidence of the pace that he can put on for the 3 rounds. He's not a subber, he's definitely a striker. 55% of his wins are from decision, so not necessarily, banking on the knockout there, but also 80% of his losses. So maybe can get a little sleepy. We don't, difficult to say definitively. He's never been knocked out, and he's very, very interesting in the way that he fights with space. So he likes space, and he kind of likes to trick you, and since he doesn't really like being on the ground, if you shoot, he's going to hit you with a counter knee, and I know a lot of his opponents are pretty aware of that. It's pretty scary, pretty threatening. He's very happy at kicking range, and really if you want to get past Chris, you're going to have to get past that. He makes it really difficult because if you try to get in with a couple of combinations, he's going to make you eat it with the calf kick for sure. So yeah, not much ground time for this guy. Very good at controlling the space. And speaking of corners, listen carefully, okay? Because you might hear his corner call out for the Wonder Boy. Yep. So let's hope we see that and hear it. Throw the Wonder Boy! Wonder Boy! Yeah, I'll be calling it out from my couch. Wonder Boy! Yeah. And he's going against Farid Basharat, a lovely horse guy who is also kind of a pillar in his community. He's currently building a school, so that's amazing. Rolling in with that undefeated gift and curse, though, right? But he's been in the UFC for 4 fights now, so this is getting pretty... Right? We're picking up a streak here. It's coming off of the decision win against Victor Hugo, but that was a year ago. But that was a really incredible performance. He was looking very floaty in there. Yeah, he's very, very floaty. And 17-fight win streak. I mean, this guy's been so dominant. Mostly a sub and decision guy. 46% both. With that in and out movement, he's just trying to lure you to where he wants to go. Very light on the feet. Yeah, and he's just very, very technical, very circling, lots and lots of lateral movement. But the way that he's able to move in and out is like very, very quickly. And while he doesn't possess a lot of, I guess you say, like heavy power, he has kind of a sniper energy about him in the way that he strikes because he's very, very quick. It's very, very hard to be faster than Farid Basharat. This fight should be really interesting, kind of a bit of a quirky matchup since both guys are more range fighters, it seems, and they both have a very interesting type movement that they try to lay out there, and I think both of them are pretty big on feinting and countering, so it'll be interesting to see who is countering more and who turns out to be the aggressor, because I'd say Chris, is more likely to be the aggressor in this case, but hey, we don't know. But we know that both these guys have very, very creative movement. And I suspect maybe Basharat will get a little bit of time in on the ground. But I think these guys are kind of going to get a little caught in the moment with things up on the feet. But we'll see. This will be fun. We have some fun middleweights next with Emmett Shahbazyan versus Muniz. Shahbazyan, he's one of the fighters that just so distinctly reminds me of a Pokemon. It's Arcanine. I'm sure some of you have heard me say that before, and I'm not going to stop saying it because, come on. Put up a picture of Arcanine and put up a picture of Emmett Shahbazyan and tell me they are not spirit animals of each other. The Golden Boy, yes. He's a karate kid, and we love that because he really brings that karate foundation, and there's not a lot of karate kids left in the UFC. We love it. Started training at age 9 and incorporated wrestling very quickly in high school, so he's definitely a really complete fighter. A lot of hype around Emmett Shahbazyan when he first came into the UFC, but then had a little bit of a stinty winty, and so he's been building back momentum since then, and he's been doing very well at that. He had a super big Dana White's Contender Series knockout, 40 seconds, like wow, and then he made his debut on my birthday, so that's special. I don't know. Anyway, that's my boy. He's Armenian and love that as well. And he's from California, as many Armenian people are. So he stands for peace. Sweet man. He used to be at Factory X, but now he's at Extreme Couture. That's his new home. So that's very interesting. Very interesting. I mean, both really huge gyms with massive reputations, right? So, but interesting to see how training at Extreme Couture has kind of impacted some of his style a little bit. So he's a knockout guy, very, very strong. Maybe like in an unassuming way, kind of. 80% of his wins are knockouts. He's very, very powerful, but also 60% of the losses. Oh no! And he's currently coming off of a decision win against Prochazka. Was able to deal with him really well. And that was good. That was definitely a statement. And has bought himself up to a 2-fight winning streak. And he's going against Andre Muniz, who has been in the UFC since similar time. He is a BJJ black belt and has been, I would say, historically known to want to be there. I mean, 63% of his wins are coming from submission, but also where he likes to take the fight. He really likes to be on the ground. He just likes to get a lot of meaningful control time in there. I'd say one adjective to describe him would be he's very suffocating. And 86% of his losses come via knockout, and I would say that's because he's got a lot of bravery. He's willing to put himself in the fire. So even though he likes submissions and getting the submission win is maybe more his wheelhouse and just on the ground in general, he's pretty much always in control. That's where he shines. He's got the bravery to get into a massive scrap. And it serves for some pretty fun fights. Yes, he had a huge layoff in 2024. Where was he? But we're back. We are back again. And he's coming off of a TKO loss, though, so looking to be back with some big momentum. But yeah, we love him for his bravery. This should be really interesting. You have a bit of a, differences in preference as far as where they'd like to take the fight. Although I'd say Andre has shown that he's down. He's down to strike. He loves to strike, and he likes to get crazy with it, what he does. But just that he feels at home on the ground. But, Edmund's got really, really solid wrestling. He's got good takedown defense. He's definitely scrappy, but, prefers to be in the karate zone. So this could be awkward. Could be a very fun clash of styles, but we've got some talented middleweights that are just outside of that top 15. And since we lost the fight with Ateba Gutierrez and Ozzy Diaz, that's 4 fights for our prelims, and we're on our way to the main card. First up, we have Joe Pyfer. I wish it was Pyfer. That's how I want to say it, so we can call him Feisty Pyfer. Anyway, against Abus Magomedov, who is in that number 14 spot now. Joe. Oh, Joe. Body bags. No. Let's change that. I don't love it. And I don't love it with a Z. Okay. He's from Philly. So, he's a little bit of drama, a little bit of sensitive energy, but he's also a lot of grit, a lot of he's a scrapper. And he's been through some stuff, right? As we know, that's kind of how we were introduced to Joe Pyfer. I'd say from a compassionate lens. And if you want to check out more of his story, he has a whole documentary that's actually really cool in the journey to the UFC, right? So check out Joe's story. He is Dana White's Contender Series rebound, so he rebounded. And arm injury, first one to KO win. So huge rebound, and definitely happy belated birthday. His birthday was just a couple weeks ago. He's currently coming off of a decision win to Calvin Gastelum, which was a rebook, and that fight was pretty, was a little. It happened. It happens. And it was supposed to happen in Mexico. He said he was pooping his little pants, and then he blamed it on Mexico. I'm sorry, that's on you. Just gotta say it again. I'm gonna keep saying it, because he says he doesn't like Mexico, which is very offensive, gotta say. Mexico is a wonderful country, and there's so many different places in Mexico. What do you mean Mexico? It's a huge... Anyway, that's fine. So... yeah, but that's the thing about Joe. One of his quotes is, "Confrontation is a good thing for me." He likes to talk trash. I guess he thinks that it's maybe an essential part of getting himself hyped up. He originally said no to this fight because it wasn't getting him a spot in the top 15. You don't want to admit to things like that. Because then people say you're scared. So, yeah. But that's why he says that's his claim for why he said no last time. But he's on a 2-fight win streak. Joe, he's a knockout guy. He's definitely like that stereotypical Philly, think Calvin Kattar, right? Of course. So losses are perfectly evenly split. So I'd say he hasn't shown any massive holes other than cardio, perhaps. And here's his chance at the top 15. And Joe has met his challenge in the top 15 with Abus Subtapayan, Abus for short, Magomedov, who is now number 14 after his last win against Michel Pereira. And you know how they do, they shuffle the rankings in whatever way they please. So, yes, but he has been in the UFC since 2022, 3-fight win streak, 21 finishes within his career. He's an absolute unit. He looks very, very athletic. He's a choker. He only likes to get training all over the place, but ATT... yeah, that's a place that he's been frequenting, and he likes to keep things simple in life, but I would say that while he's maybe simple in life, he's very creative in the cage. He can definitely do it all, leaning a little bit more on the knockouts, but he can get the submission or the decision win if it presents itself, and it does. He's very feints, and he's got a very wide stance. He's not too light on his feet, just kind of like a little bit of a pitter-patter with it. He's not jumpy. He's pretty like stable, but very light, very pitter-patter. He's all about those front kicks, so watch out. And he'll mix in those takedowns and show the resolve, right? And he's got a lot of aura. I know he's a lot of fans because he's got a lot of aura. He's very handsome. He's also got aura. This should be a fun fight to open up the main card. This is the first one that's happening on the main card. We got a little bit of a feisty Pyfer going, trying to make his way into the top 15. I guess both of these guys have been criticized for some cardio issues, so great matchup in that sense. But I think this should be pretty fun with two guys who are probably going to, I'd say, stay on the feet until Abus sees his moment, because he likes to mix in the takedowns, and we'll see. We'll see. Should be pretty fun, and we got some big implications with this one. And then we have one of my most anticipated fights of the night, Youssef Zalal, aka Pikachu, going against Josh Emmett, who we are just going to claim he's Steelix. He hasn't said that, but we're going to say that. And this is amongst the featherweight fights that is trying to make a case to whomever wins to get a chance at the title. A lot of featherweight drama. Youssef Zalal, the Moroccan devil. Shout out, right? Shout out to all of our African fighters. That's just super cool. We got a lot of amazing talent coming from Africa right now. And he has a really interesting UFC story. So, he came to the UFC originally in 2020, but then he lost all those fights in those 3-fight contracts, and it was all decision losses. And I guess what's so frustrating is the last one was a split decision loss, right? So, but it's all for the best, so he got cut, and then he had to completely claw his way back, and he has been doing that. He is on a 7-fight win streak. Okay, so he came back and has been doing so well, coming off of what I would consider a very classy decision win over Calvin Kattar. I mean, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee type energy. I know Calvin was getting a little sassy because he felt like he was running away, but I would consider that defensive fighting. I thought it was a great performance, and he looked like a butterfly, and Calvin Kattar looked like a cat who was angrily trying to catch it and just couldn't manage it. And Youssef's never been finished. He's been a bit of a submitter lately. He's thrown in some submissions. He's got 3 submissions in 2023, all boom, 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 boom. He's definitely a short notice gamer. Call him up if you need him. He's going to say yes. Maybe it's that youthful energy, right? But I think it's kind of just his personality. He's got a really bright personality. He compared himself to Pikachu, and I compared him to Pikachu without even knowing that he had made that comparison. I'm not sure who made it first, okay? But I didn't even know that he had that thought. So that's how you know he's Pikachu. He just has so much Pikachu energy, and that's definitely the story of this fight. Is Pikachu versus Steelix. Maybe think of that classic Pikachu versus Onyx fight, right? That's the energy we're going to get here, because his reputation is speed, agility. He's all over. It's awesome. He's doing everything. And oh my gosh, he once said, it was so funny, everyone who's going through sadness, smile. He's one of those smiles is the best medicine type. If he gets the mic too, make sure you unmute the TV, because he's going to say something really interesting. And I'm sure many of you know that he has a fight with Ilia Topuria, and is actually one of the people who went to decision. And this fight's really interesting because they were both much younger. This was 5 years ago that they fought. I think that's really awesome. So it's kind of it's a really interesting window into the past, and both of them have changed a lot, I think, since that fight, and maybe one day they will meet again. And this is the first time that his mom is ever going to be in the crowd, so that's pretty cool. And he is going against the illustrious Josh Emmett. He has a pretty big reputation. I'd say he's definitely someone we know Josh Emmett, right? And we're gonna know Youssef Zalal. We're gonna know. He made his UFC debut actually as a fill-in. So Josh Emmett made a short notice debut. Talk about short notice gamer, right? And he has got the reputation for being the one punch man. Kind of looks like him too. So one punch man, strength, heavy hands. Sometimes it gets a little wild and reckless in there, but when you're Josh Emmett and you're knocking people out left and right, you can kind of rely on being crazy in there. So is he the strongest guy in the division? Many people think so. Many people think so. He's very, very comfortable in the decision as well, getting half of his wins there, gonna grind that out. He's a major athlete, and he was on a 5-fight win streak before the skid with back-to-back between Ilya and Yair, and currently coming off of a loss, but again, it's to the most toughest competition ever, like Lerone Murphy. Yeah, okay, I'd say I forgive that. So, Josh Emmett has been really holding on into that top 10 spot with grace. He's losing only to the baddies. So, been rocking the beard lately, and he's been rocking with Dillashaw. So, he's doing a little bit of training with Dillashaw. Shout out old school Team Alpha Male, right? Shout out to back in the day. So, there's no drama, hopefully. But Josh actually wasn't, he's not exactly looking forward to, fighting against someone who isn't in his mind a big name, but he's Josh, so he's gonna take the fight. He's gonna take any fight. This is going to be a really, really big moment, major moment for Youssef Zalal. I can't wait to see him again. His last performance against Calvin Kattar, I was inspired by. I thought it was pretty cool, and I'm just inspired by his journey in the UFC. I mean, it's crazy to make a comeback, and we haven't reached the ceiling for Youssef Zalal, and this is really big. This is definitely the biggest name that he's faced since back in the day when he faced Topuria. Topuria was 23. That's crazy. So long ago. So this is a huge spotlight for Youssef, and I'm excited to see what he puts on out there and how he deals with Josh Emmett, because, we're all scared. He could get the Bryce Mitchell treatment. We don't know. We don't know with Josh. Then we have our first Breakfast Club matchup between Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Rountree Jr., a spot in the top 5. Yuri, where do we start? I guess we start with Never Back Down, right? Because that's where he became inspired to want to try to do MMA, was from that movie that is just so iconic. I love that so much. If you have not seen Never Back Down, oh my gosh, get to it. That is one of the goofiest movies, but it's really fun. And happy early birthday. His birthday is just around the corner. That's awesome. So he's going to be 33, lucky 33. So he was a star over at Risen, and he's been an absolute star in the UFC. I mean, his only losses are to Alex, so that's funny. Or interesting. I don't know, maybe funny is not the word. But he's coming off of an incredible fight against Jamal Hill. I mean, still think that that's one of the potential contenders for Fight of the Year this year. That fight was amazing. And I think that he did show a little bit of growth in terms of because he's chaotic, right? That's what he's known for. And I think a lot of people, they would prefer for him to keep it that way in terms of thriving in risk in chaos, but he's been saying that he's been trying to be a little bit more refined with his technique, and I think he did show that. We unzipped a little bit, but that's okay. He had to take a little bit of a fighting break, not too long, right? He's just been 9 months since he fought, but he had to get his master's, and I think that's really cool, right? Congratulations, and he's pretty humble about it. Yuri is just such a character. Like, when he talks, I feel like you have to put it on 1.5 speed. Whereas, like me, you might have to slow it down. He talks so slow because he's thinking so deeply about everything that he's saying. I love it. You can see it behind his eyes, right? He's just thinking. Yeah, so he's been, right, historically very chaotic. 87% of his wins, knockouts, but also 80% of the losses. I mean, we are living in chaos, thriving in risk. So he's very tricky, got an awkward style. That's another thing he's known for, is just this twitchy, weird. I mean, he's almost as weird as Michael Venom Page, right? In terms of what do you do here? I mean, no, Michael Venom Page, that is the hardest guy to map out for sure. But he's up there. Yuri's up there for sure. Hasn't been to the land of decision actually since 2016. Oh, that's chaotic. I love it. And again, his only UFC losses are to Alex, so that's pretty crazy, right? He's got just a pretty clear scratch and not much else there. Hands out, right? He's a big kitty cat with the paws, and he's looking to get some really odd angles. And he's trusting in his instincts. Yes, and as we said, an absolute fan favorite for his quirky style, and he pretty much never disappoints. And he's going against Khalil Rountree Jr., who also has a very illustrious reputation in a different way. Shout out Warhorse Khalil. He has not had it easy in life. I mean, for him, MMA was definitely a lifesaver, whereas for Yuri, it was, I guess, a profound curiosity. Khalil is very straight up, I guess, on how he feels like he's still making his way in it all. He doesn't have like these secrets on how he has gotten the success that he has gotten. He's done very, very well for himself since joining the UFC in 2016. He's a Muay Thai guy. It's tatted all over him, right? Like Carlos Prates. You got to tat it up. He's a Muay Thai guy. He's very, very strong, so big on that power. I mean, 64% of his wins via knockout, so that's 7 in the UFC, but it's knockdowns 101. Like, he actually has tied with Chuck Liddell for the most knockdowns in light heavyweight history, so that's extremely significant. So the power is there. I mean, he looks powerful, and he is powerful. He is standing and banging, not really interested in submission, and just like his opponent, he's coming off of a win against Jamal Hill. Okay, well, there you go. They have that in common. That's fun. He's very fast, too. Khalil is very, very fast, especially for a guy who's, like, heavy, stocky, and just so technical. Is not really interested in making things like a gritty, nasty fight. He would prefer for it to be clean if possible, but he's always living by that mentality of fall 7 times, stand up 8, and showed a lot of heart in many of his fights. I mean, I think people most frequently cite his fight against Alex, where he pushed himself to the absolute limit. I mean, DC's crying about all the blood on his phone like that. Yeah, Khalil pushed his body to insane limits in that fight and proved to be really, really tough. He's got a bit of a soft side too, as many hardcore fans, right? He loves hardcore music, loves terror, and a lot of those people are big sweeties, and so he loves his wife. He loves his cats. And this is such an exciting matchup. I imagine this is a lot of people's most anticipated fight. There is just, I feel like everyone's saying if this fight goes to a decision that it's going to be so gruesome. You know, eyes will be popping out. Somebody said that. I was like, ew. Blood will be raining. Khalil's hoping that it's going to be a little bit more on the technical side and that he won't have to damage his body too much. Also need to mention that it's Khalil Rountree who is the other GQ model. That's what his photo was. That was from his GQ photo shoots. That's our second GQ model that is on this fight card. Hello, shout out pretty boys. And that's another reason why he's Claire, right, in the Breakfast Club. Because if you're that pretty, you gotta be Claire. So, anyway, this should be Blood and War. This should be Blood and War, you know, even if Khalil is looking to keep it technical. Maybe after Yuri getting his master's degree, he has learned to have more self-control, more discipline. Just kidding. This guy is so disciplined. His work ethic is crazy. But as far as unraveling, unzipping in the cage and just going for broke with chaos, which is a very, very dangerous thing to do with Khalil, who is very, 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 very powerful. But this is just so fun. And this will be awesome because, you know, it is really fun to see someone who's got a very refined, very technical style like Khalil against a chaotic firecracker missile like Yuri. Next up, we have the bantamweight title up for grabs with Merab Dvalishvili against Corey Sandhagen. Merab, the Machine, and even though there's several people who have that nickname, I think he kind of, you know, copyrighted it essentially just with the proof is in the pudding, right? Most takedowns in UFC history and just the way that the cardio never quits. I mean, it's insanity with this guy, so he has maybe earned the coveted title of Machine. He comes from a Sambo background, so he's been in the UFC since 2017. It's on a 13-fight win streak. I mean, let's go, right? Let's go. You lose, you pick back up, you say, I'm coming in. Cardio, quirkiness, wrestling foundation, right? Willing to shoot takedowns until it's over, as we said, most in UFC history. And if you really think about it, the UFC probably wasn't really rooting for him to be in the position that he's in right now. I don't think so. I don't really think they carved a pathway for Merab. In fact, they were crossing their fingers hoping for O'Malley, because for some reason, even though Merab is a star amongst us and in the UFC community and amongst his amazing, beautiful country of Georgia, and he is definitely a celebrity, maybe a little bit less so than Sean O'Malley in terms of the reach outside of the UFC sphere. So, you know, UFC was like, come on, Sean, couldn't get it done. Couldn't get it done twice. So here we are, right? Here we are. Merab is champ. He's Dami, and he has been just crushing it with his decision grind style for real. 75% of his wins coming this way because that's just what he does. He's going to control you and he's going to put on the tempo. He's a really funny guy. Like Corey Sandhagen, he likes making skits. That's kind of cute. I wish they'd they should make a bunch of skits together, like a whole series. Anyway. He'll also eat raw eggs and the shell. That's so Oh my gosh. That is the reason why he's Ali in the Breakfast Club, because only Ali would eat a whole entire egg and the shell. Oh, that's wow, that's criminal. That is criminal behavior. So he's currently coming off of that O'Malley rematch where, it was Damage and Abuse Part 2. And then before that, he's had that really crazy showman style win over Umar where he was just being just so crazy with it, right? He was being absolutely crazy. So he's been really, really active, and he's definitely putting himself in contention if he gets the win for Fighter of the Year, which is how much he's been performing for us, right? Shout out Merab for the activity in the cage and then the activity getting back to the cage, right? He's always training. And he's going against Corey Sandhagen, who has made his way here, the Sandman. So Corey Sandhagen had a very, very interesting UFC career, 11-4, has faced so many amazing competition. He's definitely a dude doing his best, I would say, just killing it out there. Big Sandhagen fan. He's on my inspiration wall for sure. And he's coming off of an amazing knee injury TKO win over Figgy. That was not an accident. That was intentional. Got to see that live. That was very, very cool. Kind of evidence of the sport evolving. Corey Sandhagen is definitely just an evolving type character. He does so many things in there. We'd love to see it. So even though he is a striker, he is very quick to get back up when he's on the ground. But then also when he is on the ground, he's very, very wise and quick to put himself in positions where he's not in a lot of danger. I love to see that. I just love to see it. He's got a great confidence to him. And like Merab, he's got really, really good cardio, and he puts on a crazy pace. He is so active with his strikes. Watch out for that left hand too. That's the sneaky one. And he's very difficult to outstrike. Actually, he's very, very difficult to outstrike, and he's never been knocked out. So he's going to put himself in the position to just keep boom, 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 adding up the strikes in his favor. And he knows what to do in a pinch. So in those submission moments or in the submission attempt moments when people are trying to get it on him, he knows exactly what to do. He's got submission skills himself, but he just prefers to be a striker, but knows how to handle it. Just so quick to his feet. He's very, very difficult to control. So even though he lost that Umar fight, lost the decision there and was outstruck in there as well, he still proved that he was very, very difficult to hold down. And Umar Nurmagomedov, right? Nurmagomedov, pretty big reputation there with that name, and I'd say that he performed a lot better than what people were expecting, and he was absolutely get off of me, and I think that is some great evidence as far as how he's going to handle Merab's vicious takedowns as well. That he's going to be, I think, pretty crafty at getting out of it, getting back up on his feet, but 80% of his losses are via decision. So if he can get held down, so he's so difficult to outstrike, but if you can hold him down and get some meaningful control in there, I think that's where a lot of those decision losses have come from. He also likes making skits. He is so funny. Corey Sandhagen might be the funniest person in the UFC. This fight is huge. I mean, not just because it's for the title, but because, Merab is attempting to further carve his legacy as one of the best bantamweights, if not the best bantamweight. I think people might start saying the best if he does this. I mean, many people say he's the best bantamweight of all time right now, but of course that's going to really add to that. And then on the flip side, Corey Sandhagen would completely shake up, he'd pull the tablecloth right off. That doesn't make any sense. He would really shake things up, really flip the rug and throw some dust up if he gets the win, and it would be just so many interesting potential matchups after that. I think also because a lot of people don't really believe in Corey Sandhagen, unfortunately, in terms of his ability to get this fight done. I think a lot of people are kind of stuck in the idea that, it's a bit of a nightmare matchup on paper, but I think Corey Sandhagen is a very complete fighter, and I do not think he's going to get bullied in there like Sean O'Malley. We're not going to know until we know, but I think that Corey Sandhagen has proven to be pretty scrappy in those little grappling exchanges, and I'm just really excited for that. And Merab as well has been talking about wanting to keep this fight on the feet, but as Corey says, which I agree with, everybody has a game plan until you get punched in the face. So we'll see what actually transpires, but that would be pretty fun, right? If we got a primarily striking matchup, and if somehow Merab could outdo Corey Sandhagen in that field, that would make a really massive statement. But I gotta be honest, I'm really rooting for Corey. I'm really rooting for Corey. I think it'd be really cool for the bantamweight division, but just as a fan, I want to see him make his way to the belt. I think that he deserves that, and he is just such an interesting fighter. I love his style, but I just love this fight. I love this fight, and no matter what happens, I'm just hoping it's going to be a real scrap in there, and I think it will be. That leads us to our main event, the light heavyweight title, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira, an immediate rematch for both. Let's talk about the story of the last fight just really quickly. So round one, pretty good kicks by Alex. Definitely stole the round in that way where he was really landing and ahead in the significant strikes. But then in round two, you could see Magomed was really feeling himself because Alex was kind of just standing in front of him, and he rocked him huge at the end. I mean, that's the thing about Alex. Sometimes that chinny gets a little chinny, and he got hit big. And it didn't look like he completely recovered. It was really just that the bell was rung. So that was a really tense moment. And then it was round three, and Joe and DC were beginning to kind of accept reality that Alex is human, and everyone was holding hands, a lot of hand fighting with two guys who really like to strike, you know how it is. And Alex was a little bit on the back foot, so not used to seeing that so much, but that was a really close round. Round three was close. Round four, Magomed deploys clinch control against the fence, and this is where we start to see the tide, I guess, switching towards Magomed pretty definitively in that fourth round with all of that control. And then we make it to round five. Magomed's looking really, really stocky, but there's not exactly a sense of urgency. Even though Alex is still mostly backing up, he manages to defend a 10th takedown attempt. All in all, when you look back at that fight, you think, wow, that was a close one. But I'm thinking, yeah, Magomed was able to get it done, outstrike, and get some control in there. I'm no judge at all in any capacity, but from watching it originally and watching it again recently, it does seem that Alex got the first and maybe last round, but those three middle rounds were seeming Magomed. So this is a great rematch in that sense because it was a really close fight, and you could see how if everybody comes back with a little bit more urgency, how things could look a little differently this time. So I think that this is a very, very high matchup for sure, but we got to go over the first one since both of these guys, that's their most recent fight. Magomed Ankalaev is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, so even though it's the last bullet point and maybe should be the first one, that of course I'm very biased here. As you know, we're all human, we're all biased. I'm biased for Yusuf Zalal too, I'm biased for Corey Sandhagen, I gotta admit it. But all love, I just think Magomed is so interesting, such an interesting guy. He went to Dagestan University, got his degree in sports faculty. He's learned up. He is a world fighting champion in Akhmat. I don't even really know all about that, but he won the Grand Prix. That's cool. And he's Sambo, of course, right? Wrestling base. But I'm always saying, don't be racist, right? Just because he's from Dagestan, he's a striker, right? He's a striker. But anybody who knows Magomed knows that he really likes to strike. That's where he's happy. He's really an amazing striker. He stood very well against Alex too, so it's definitely his skill set. And he has been in the UFC since 2018. He's been nearly perfect, seriously. Other than his nightmare start, right? Sub loss to gatekeeper Paul Craig, right? That's Paul Craig's purpose is to, can you really handle this? That's the Paul Craig energy, especially in 2017, Paul Craig was on a tear. He was tearing it up in there. And it was 1 second to go. Okay, right? 1 second to go. And he loses. He gets submitted with a second to go. But ever since then, he has been undefeated. So just that lone loss in the UFC and the 1-0 contest, that toe-to-toe matchup between Jan Blachowicz, Jan, he's like a gatekeeper in his own sense. He's the gatekeeper to the belt, right? He guards the belt. Jan, we love Jan Blachowicz. He's so much fun. That was an awesome toe-to-toe fight. I mean, crazy. Talk about a draw. Yeah, so we had a draw. Magomed is so much fun. He really puts on a show in there. He's not a boring fighter at all. And the proof is in the performance of the night bonuses. Yes, he's got incredible takedown defense. So he uses that sambo, that wrestling background to control like madness. Like, you're not going to get me down. It's just not going to happen. So completely sub-resistant in that regard. So he's just, I Love that he's got this such a strong striking game and such a strong defense against the takedowns. So he's going to keep the fight where he wants it. Knockout City, 52% of the wins, and then half decision. So again, submissions, not on this guy's mind. Not on this guy's mind. He's coming off of that win where he captured the belt from Poatan back in March. And we are running it back. Okay, this is crazy. He's so shy. He's handsome. He's sweetie. He's deadly. He's got it all. And he's a horse guy. Okay, one of his great quotes, "A horse knows the way to a man's heart." That is just so sweet. We love animals, and we love people who love animals. And he is going against big bad Poatan, Alex Pereira, holding on to that number one spot. Yes, just coming off of that most recent loss, challenging for the belt. He's someone who found martial arts as a way to stay straight, and he had his first, I guess you could say, martial arts journey as a complete career in Glory Kickboxing. I mean, he was a 2-division champ. He is just absolutely so incredible, like what he has done there, and he could have just, you know, said, all right, that's all I want to do. I'm over it. I mean, he's 38 years old, so could have called the career quits there, but essentially the UFC brought him in because they needed somebody. They needed somebody to do something about Israel Adesanya. And since they have that history where back in their kickboxing days, Alex had landed a knockout on Izzy, they were like, we need somebody. We need somebody. This is our guy. This might be our guy. So they brought him in pretty much exclusively for that reason. And that's why, in my opinion, he had the quickest rise to the title in UFC history, because that's why they brought him in the first place, is because of that history with Izzy, the ability to generate that drama, that narrative. That is a legendary set of fights. That's a legendary rivalry. But he moved on. Okay, so he started off in middleweight there and has transitioned now to light heavyweight, which is probably more natural for his massive body. And he had 3 title defenses in 1 year. So talk about an active champion. That was really, really cool. But now he is the challenger, coming off of the loss against Ankalaev. He says that he was at 40% in that fight, which I consider to be a red flag of a statement for sure. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know why you would be at 40%. That's not a good thing to admit. But he's got a very high striking accuracy. That's his reputation, is that he has got this crazy left hook and that he'll be chopping at those calves. Like the calves are fear, the way he really compromises the forward movement, right, with the calf kicks. That's kind of what that's all about. And that's what he is all about. So he's living that knockout lifestyle, pawing it away, trying to paw you out. 83% of his wins via knockout. And you know he's Teixeira MMA. You know it. You know how it is. And he's Riot Girl, right? He's Riot Girl, so that's why he's John. Throughout much of his career, he's kind of been spoken about like he is God. So that's kind of a heavy crown to wear. Don't really want to get into all of the hearsay type drama surrounding this fight, but why this is so exciting is because the dust can hopefully settle. So no more excuses about being 40%. Okay, no more you greased up. Oh gosh, I can't hear any of that. Okay, so this fight's a little bit of drama. I think we're really looking forward to essentially moving on with the light heavyweight division in general. We gotta just put this baby to bed. I am hoping for a bit of a war because when we did have those striking moments, it was very, very fun. And I'm a really big fan of Magomed, and I liked what he sets up in there with the striking. And I like Alex's bravery, right? I kind of like how when he's feeling himself, he'll just kind of stand there, right, and throw. Like, just confidence. But again, with immediate rematches, statistically speaking or historically speaking, they don't often favor the person who had lost originally to win in the next. So we'll see. So exciting. 2 belts, right? This is gonna be a crazy card. UFC 320. There's so many fun fights. I gotta say, you know, bantamweights, we love them. So I think I'm probably most looking forward to that. Especially I just want to see, right? I think that's the one where people really kind of think they know exactly what's gonna happen. Merab's gonna control it, but I got a feeling. I got a Sandhagen feeling. And Youssef Zalal, I'm just so happy to see him be coming into the UFC mainstream. He really deserves that. Interesting guy. So many really fun matchups. We're going to go over all the fights on the review. Missed a couple. It's been a little crazy over here on my neck of the woods in a bad way, but we make do, we move on, we live on, we get through it. Here is our song of the week, or for the next 2 days, until we have our song of the night. Let me know, what fights you're most looking forward to. Would love to know your thoughts on how you think things are going to transpire for any fight at all. Go crazy. Tell me about any of them. Tell me about anything in general. And I think that's all I've got. So peace out.